I saw was the reflection of flashing lights in my rearview mirror. The second thing I saw was the barrel of a rifle pointed at my windshield. Hands up. Now. I froze with both palms lifted off the steering wheel, fingers spread wide, like I could prove innocence with skin. Traffic slowed around me. A minivan crept past at a crawl. Someone's phone was already held up, recording through a cracked window. I kept my breathing shallow and even. Panic makes people reach for things. Panic makes officers tighten fingers. Panic turns misunderstandings into tragedies. So I didn't panic. I stared straight ahead and waited for instructions. Driver, turn the engine off. I moved slowly, using 2 fingers to twist the key. The engine died with a soft shudder. My heart didn't. Throw the keys out the window. I'm going to do it, I said, loud enough to be heard but calm enough to be believable. I pinched the keychain between my thumb and index finger, lowered the window inch by inch, and dropped the keys onto the asphalt. Step out. Face away. Keep your hands where I can see them. The voice was close now, hard with adrenaline. I opened the door with my left hand, stepping out exactly the way I'd been taught in every safety briefing I'd ever watched. Slow, predictably, obedient. My sneakers hit the road shoulder. A siren wailed somewhere farther back, then cut off as it approached. The air smelled like hot brake pads and dust. Walk backward toward my voice. I did. My pulse beat in my ears, but my face stayed still. I kept my eyes on the horizon like I was trying not to offend anyone with a glance. I heard boots shifting, a radio squawked. Another officer shouted something I couldn't make out. Then the voice behind me changed, it got more specific. It said my name. Naomi Heller? Yes, I answered. A beat of silence, like they were confirming the sound of me matched the photo on their screen. You are being detained, the officer said. This vehicle has been reported stolen. Active case, armed suspect in misery. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like my body forgot where it was. Armed suspect. My hands were still up. My wrists were already aching. I'm not armed, I said carefully. Keep your hands up, he snapped. Do not turn around. I didn't. But my mind moved faster than my body ever could. This was my car, registered in my name, insured in my name, paid off last year. I had the title in my file box at home. So why would it show as stolen? And then the real reason hit me like a cold slap. Today was Grandpa's probate hearing, 8:30 sharp. Downtown courthouse. The one date I couldn't miss because I was the named personal representative in his will. The one hearing my sister had been circling like a shark since the day Grandpa died. If I was in cuffs on the side of the road, I wouldn't be in court. And there was exactly one person who would gamble with my life to buy herself a few hours. My sister Selena. Selena didn't just want the inheritance. She wanted control of the story. She wanted me to look dangerous on paper. She wanted the court to hear detained and armed advisory. And quietly decide I was unstable. I swallowed once and kept my voice steady. Officer, I said. I need you to check who filed the report. And the time it was filed. The officer behind me didn't respond immediately. A radio crackled near my shoulder. I heard the faint tapping of keys. Someone typing into a system, pulling up the call, the entry, the details. Another officer stepped closer. I could feel his presence like heat. His voice lowered slightly, still controlled but less sharp. Why are you asking that? He said. Because I know who did this, I answered. And because I'm due in probate court this morning. A small pause. Probate, he repeated, like the word didn't belong on the shoulder of a highway with rifles drawn. I can prove ownership, I added. Registration is in the glove box. Insurance card is in my app. My license matches the registration. This is not a stolen vehicle. The officer didn't argue, he didn't apologize. He did what competent officers do when something feels wrong, he verified. Dispatch, he said into his radio. Confirm reporting party and timestamp on the stolen vehicle entry. Static. Then a dispatcher's voice. Female. Crisp. Stand by. The second stretched in the worst possible way. Slow enough to feel every heartbeat. Fast enough to know my entire morning was bleeding out. Behind me, someone muttered, "She's calm." That wasn't a compliment, it was suspicion. I kept my hands up and my voice neutral. "I'm calm because I want everyone to go home," I said quietly. "Please check the report." Finally, the dispatcher returned. "Reporting party is Selena Heller," she said. My chest tightened, but I didn't react. Then the dispatcher added the part that made the road feel like it tilted under my feet. "Our report was filed at 6:51 a.m. 6:51. Less than an hour ago." I'd been on the road at 6:51. I'd been in my driveway at 6:45, putting my coffee in a travel mug, checking the courthouse address, texting my attorney that I was on the way. Selena filed it while I was walking out the door. The officer behind me went quiet. I heard him shift his stance. The tone of the air changed. Not softer, not safe, but different. Like the story in his head had just been rewritten. He spoke again, and his voice was lower, tighter. "Ma'am," he said, "your sister just reported this vehicle stolen this morning. And she flagged you as an armed suspect." I swallowed once, keeping my voice careful. "Can you see what she claimed?" I asked. "What she told you to make you draw weapons?" There was another pause, and within the faint sound of scrolling, the officer exhaled sharply through his nose like he'd seen something he didn't like. "Ma'am," he said, and his voice had changed again, less command, more warning. "She didn't just say it was stolen. She added a note that you threatened the family and might be headed to the courthouse." My throat tightened. Because that meant Selena didn't want me pulled over anywhere. She wanted me stopped before probate. And she wanted it on record that I was a threat. The officer's radio chirped again. A supervisor's voice cut in, firm. "Hold. Do not cuff unless necessary. Verified VIN and registration on scene." The officer near me took a step closer. "Do you have your license?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "It's in my jacket pocket. I can tell you exactly where it is." He nodded. Slowly. 2 fingers. "I move the way you move when your life depends on being predictable." I pulled my license out, held it up, and waited for him to take it. He checked it, then glanced toward my car. "Registration in glove box?" he asked. "Yes," I replied. "And I can unlock the car remotely from my phone if you need it." He stared at me for a beat. Not hostile, not friendly. Thinking. Then he said something that made my stomach go cold all over again. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "if your sister filed a false report with an armed advisory, that's serious. And it means she's willing to escalate." I kept my eyes forward. "I know." He looked back toward his cruiser, then down at his screen again. And in the silence that followed, I realized something worse than being pulled over at gunpoint. Selena hadn't just tried to delay me. Yet she'd tried to create a record that could follow me into court. And if she'd already called police at 6:51, what else had she filed before 8:30? They verified the VIN first. An officer walked up to my car with his hand still near his holster, leaned down and read the number through the windshield. Another one radioed it in. The dispatcher confirmed what I already knew. VIN matches registration to Naomi Heller. No hit for stolen history prior to today. The rifles lowered. Not all the way, just enough to tell me the immediate danger had shifted. The officer holding my license looked at me differently now. Like I'd moved from armed suspect to person being used. "Ms. Heller," he said, "do you consent to us searching the vehicle for weapons?" "No," I replied calmly. But I will show you my insurance app and registration." He studied my face, then nodded. "Fair." He walked with me to the passenger side. I kept my hands visible as I opened my phone and pulled up my insurance card. I told him the exact location of the registration, and he opened the glove box himself while another officer watched my hands like they were the only thing that mattered. Registration? My name. Address? My name. Plate? My name. The officer exhaled once. Sharp. Okay. A supervisor arrived. Sergeant Stripes, older, calmer. But he took one look at the screen in the patrol car, then at me, and then at the reporting party details. You said your sister did this because of a probate hearing, he said. Yes, I replied. My grandfather's probate hearing is this morning, 8:30. She wants me in custody, or at least delayed. The sergeant stared at the report note again. She flagged you as armed, he said, almost to himself, and claimed you threatened the family. I kept my voice steady. Can you show me the exact allegation? He didn't show me the screen, but he read it. Reporting party states, he said. Vehicle stolen by sister after family dispute. Suspect may be armed. Suspect headed to courthouse to cause a scene. I felt my throat tighten, but I didn't give it air. I want this documented as false, I said. And I want a copy of your incident number. The sergeant nodded once. You'll get an incident number, he said. Then he looked at the officer who'd first approached me. Remove the stolen entry, now. The officer hesitated. We can't just remove it, Sarge. It's an active stolen. The sergeant's gaze hardened. It's a false report. We're clearing it pending verification with the registered owner, which is standing right here. The officer typed again, fingers moving faster. Then the sergeant looked at me. Do you want to pursue charges? I want to get to probate court, I said. First. He studied me for a beat. Then he did something that told me he wasn't interested in letting this become a family gossip story. He made it procedural. We're going to escort you, he said. Not because you're in trouble, because if she did this once, she might try again. I didn't argue. Thank you, I said. He nodded. We'll document everything. And Ms. Heller, what time did you leave your house? I answered immediately. About 6:45. And when did you first notice police behind you, he asked. 6:57, I said. I saw lights. Eyes then the stop. He nodded again, making notes. Okay, he said. That gives us a clean timeline. A clean timeline. That was the difference between Selena's story and mine. She sold emotion. I brought timestamps. While they finished paperwork, I saw other drivers craning their necks to stare. Someone drove by slowly with their phone still up, capturing my face like it was content. The sergeant saw it too. He stepped into the lane and waved traffic forward like he was shutting down a spectacle. Then he leaned closer to me, voice low. Do you have anything in writing from your sister about probate? I have texts, I said. From last night. Save them, he said. Screenshot, don't delete anything. I nodded. Already. When they finally cleared the stolen status, the officer who'd first shouted at me came back with my license. His face was tight, embarrassed, but he didn't apologize in a sentimental way. He apologized in the only way that mattered. Ma'am, he said. I'm sorry. That advisory made it high risk. I understand, I replied. That's why she added it. His jaw tightened. Yeah, he said, like it tasted bad. Yeah. The sergeant gave me an incident card with a number written in thick ink. Here, he said. This is your call number. You'll need it. I took it and slid it into my wallet like a key. Then he looked at his officers. 2 cars, he said. We're going to the courthouse. I got back into my vehicle with my hands still steady. My coffee had gone cold, untouched in the cup holder. As I merged back onto the road with a cruiser behind me and another ahead, my phone buzzed. A new message from Selena. Where are you? No punctuation, no concern. You just control. Then another. If you show up, it'll get worse. I didn't respond. I screenshotted both and forwarded them to myself. The escort moved faster than normal traffic. The cruisers didn't use sirens, but they carved a lane with quiet authority. It felt surreal, being protected by the same institution Selena had tried to weaponize. 10 minutes from the courthouse, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I didn't answer on instinct. Unknown numbers are how traps speak. But the call went to voicemail immediately and the transcription popped up. Naomi, it's Selena. Pick up. This is your last chance to do this the easy way. My stomach tightened. She wasn't calling to apologize. She was calling because she'd expected me in handcuffs. And if I wasn't in handcuffs, she needed a new plan. Like we pulled into the courthouse lot with 7 minutes to spare. The sergeant stepped out of his cruiser and walked up to my window. Ms. Heller, he said. I'm going to have one unit stay nearby. If anything happens in that courtroom hallway, you tell a deputy immediately. I will, I said. I grabbed my folder from the passenger seat. Grandpa's will, the letters, the probate notice, the certified copy of the trust inventory I'd requested days ago. Everything organized, everything tabbed, everything ready. As I stepped out, the morning air felt sharper, cleaner. The courthouse doors loomed ahead like a place where Selena's stories would either die or become permanent. I walked through security and into the main hallway. That's when I saw her. Selena stood near the probate courtroom doors in a cream-colored coat, hair perfect, posture relaxed, like she'd been waiting for me to arrive so she could watch me fail. Her eyes scanned the hall, then locked onto me. And when she saw me walking freely, no cuffs, no officers holding my arms, her expression flickered. Not anger, shock. Then she recovered instantly and smiled like she'd never called the police at all. Naomi, she said, voice sweet. Thank God, I was so worried. I didn't answer her greeting. I held up my phone and said quietly, I have the incident number. And I have your texts. Her smile froze. Behind her, the courtroom clerk opened the door and called, Heller Estate, parties please. Selena leaned closer, voice dropping to a hiss. You think you're clever? She whispered. But I didn't need you arrested. I just needed you late. My stomach tightened. Because being late wasn't the only way to lose in probate. Selena had access to paperwork too. And as I stepped toward the courtroom doors, I realized she was holding a thin folder in her hand. Fresh papers clipped on top like a weapon she'd been saving for the judge. Selena's folder wasn't thick. It didn't have to be. In probate, one clean page can do more damage than a whole box of memories, if it's stamped, filed, and timed correctly. We walked into the courtroom together, and the room immediately felt different from civil court. Less shouting, more quiet noise. People sat in their best clothes with their worst intentions. The air smelled like old wooden toner. At the front, a clerk stood beside a small stack of files. The bailiff watched everyone's hands the way highway officers watched mine, and Selena took the seat at the petitioner's table like it belonged to her. I sat at the respondent's side with my folder open, tabs ready. When the judge came in, everyone stood. Judge Whitaker settled behind the bench, glanced at the docket and said, Estate of Walter Heller. That name hit my chest the way it always did, gentle and painful at the same time. Appearances, the judge said. A man in a gray suit stood beside Selena. I hadn't noticed him in the hallway. Your Honor, Daniel Rourke vs. Selena Heller, he said smoothly. Selena didn't look at me when her attorney spoke. She stared forward like she was already inside a victory speech. I stood. Naomi Heller, I said. I'm appearing without counsel. Judge Whitaker's gaze flipped to my folder, then to Selena's, then back to me. Ms. Heller, he said. I see an emergency filing entered this morning. My stomach tightened. Selena's attorney didn't wait to be invited. Yes, Your Honor, he said, stepping forward with that clean urgency lawyers use when they want the court to feel responsible for a crisis. We filed an emergency petition for temporary appointment of a special administrator and for removal of Ms. Naomi Heller as proposed personal representative. Judge Whitaker didn't react emotionally, he reacted procedurally. On what grounds? Rourke's voice softened into fake concern. Safety, he said. The decedent expressed fear. And this morning, there was an active law enforcement event involving Ms. Heller, her vehicle, and an armed advisory. We believe the estate assets are at immediate risk. I felt the courtroom tilt slightly, not because I was scared, but because Selena had done exactly what I'd feared. She hadn't needed me arrested to win. She needed the court to hear the words: armed advisory, safety risk, immediate danger. Selena's eyes stayed calm. Her mouth even turned down, like she was reluctantly doing the responsible thing. Judge Whitaker looked at me. "Ms. Heller," he said it evenly. "Did law enforcement detain you this morning?" "No," I replied. Rourke cut in instantly. "Your Honor, we have a case number." He held up a page. Judge Whitaker's eyes narrowed. "You have a case number for what?" "A stolen vehicle report," Rourke said. "Filed by my client. She reported her sister tipped the car during a volatile dispute. Officers initiated a high-risk stop." Judge Whitaker's gaze shifted to Selena. "You filed the report." Selena nodded with practiced sadness. "I was terrified," she said. "I didn't know what she would do. I didn't respond to the performance, I responded to the record." "I want to be very clear," I said calmly. "My car was not stolen. It is registered to me. My sister filed a false report at 6:51 a.m. to delay me so I'd miss this hearing." Rourke's lips curved slightly, like he was about to explain why I was paranoid. Judge Whitaker didn't look at him. He looked at me. "How do you know the time?" "Because dispatch confirmed it on C," I said. "And I have the incident number and the officer's card." I lifted the small incident card the sergeant gave me, then placed it on the table so the bailiff could collect it if the judge wanted. Rourke laughed softly, barely audible but meant to signal confidence. "Your Honor, with respect, in her story doesn't change the risk assessment." Judge Whitaker's gaze sharpened. "Risk assessment requires facts, counsel." Rourke shifted. "We can subpoena later. Today we need temporary control of the estate to prevent misuse." I didn't raise my voice, I didn't plead. I opened my folder and slid one page forward. A screenshot printout of Selena's texts. "Where are you? If you show up, it'll get worse." Judge Whitaker stared at it. Rourke's expression changed slightly, just a flicker, because he recognized a timestamp problem when he saw one. Judge Whitaker looked up. "Ms. Heller," he said to Selena, "did you text your sister these messages this morning?" Selena blinked fast. I was trying to reach her." "Before or after you reported her car stolen?" the judge asked. Selena's mouth tightened. Rourke jumped in again. "Your Honor, those texts could be interpreted many ways." Judge Whitaker cut him off. "Not if the timestamps align." He turned to the clerk. "Do we have the filing time for the emergency petition?" The clerk checked the docket. "Filed at 7:42 a.m., Your Honor." Judge Whitaker nodded slowly, then looked back at Selena. "So you filed a stolen vehicle report at 6:51, then filed an emergency petition at 7:42, citing the resulting police stop." Selena's eyes held steady, but her throat moved once. "That's correct," Rourke said quickly, tried to reclaim control. Because she was in fear. And the events substantiated her concern. Judge Whitaker leaned forward slightly. "Or it was manufactured," he said, voice flat. The room went quiet. I didn't smile, I didn't react. I simply added, "The officers verified the BIN on scene. At dispatch confirmed the vehicle was registered to me. The stolen entry was cleared as false pending verification. Because I was standing there as the registered owner." Rourke's face tightened. "Do you have documentation of that clearance?" "I can obtain it," I said. "And the officers advised me to preserve my sister's messages." Judge Whitaker stared at Selena for a long moment. Then he looked at Rourke. "Counsel, what you're asking for is extraordinary relief. Temporary control of an estate, based on an event that appears linked to your client's own report." Rourke held his posture, but the smoothness was starting to crack. "Your Honor, even if the vehicle report is disputed, The decedent's intent is clear. He did not want Naomi controlling everything. Selena's eyes flicked to me, quick and sharp, like she was begging me to lose control. I didn't. What exactly are you claiming about my grandfather's intent? I asked, still calm. Rourke turned a page in Selena's folder with a deliberate flourish. We have a statement, he said. A handwritten note. My stomach tightened. Selena's smile returned. Small, satisfied, because she knew what that sounded like in a probate courtroom. Rourke handed the note to the bailiff, who handed it to the clerk, who handed it to the judge. Judge Whittaker read it in silence. From where I stood, I couldn't see the words, but I could see the judge's eyes moving over the page. I could see where he paused. Then he looked up. Counsel, he said quietly. This is not dated. Rourke didn't flinch. It was found among the decedent's papers. Judge Whittaker's gaze stayed sharp. And it's not witnessed. Rourke's voice stayed smooth. It's corroborative, Kim, and given the incident this morning, I spoke before he could finish the sentence. Your Honor, may I submit an objective record? Judge Whittaker looked at me. What record? I pulled out the incident card again. Call the sheriff's civil supervisor who handled the stop, I said. Ask whether I was arrested. Ask whether the vehicle was stolen. Ask for the CAD log and body camera tag. The timestamps will match. Rourke exhaled through his nose like I was being theatrical. Judge Whittaker didn't react to Rourke. He reacted to the word objective. He turned to the clerk. Call the sheriff's office now. Selena's shoulders stiffened. While the clerk died, Rourke tried to steer back into emotion. Your Honor, we're looking at a grieving family situation. I'm looking at filings, Judge Whittaker replied. The clerk reached someone. Put it on speaker. A male voice answered, clipped and professional. Sheriff's Department, Civil Supervisor. The judge spoke plainly. This is Judge Whittaker. I have an emergency probate petition referencing a high-risk stop involving Naomi Heller this morning. Was she arrested? A pause. Then the supervisor replied, No, Your Honor. Judge Whittaker's eyes stayed on Selena. Was the vehicle stolen? Another pause. No, Your Honor. Vehicle registered to Miss Heller. Entry was cleared as false report pending review. Selena's face tightened like she'd been slapped without a hand. Rourke tried to speak. Judge Whittaker raised a finger. Was an armed suspect advisory appropriate? The judge asked. The supervisor's tone sharpened slightly. It was based on the reporting party's statements, yet, Your Honor. And the reporting party was? Judge Whittaker said. Selena Heller. The supervisor replied. The courtroom didn't erupt, it just went cold. Judge Whittaker ended the call with a simple, thank you, then looked at Rourke. Counsel, he said evenly. You were asking me to remove a proposed personal representative based on an incident your client initiated, with a report now confirmed as false. Rourke's mouth opened, then closed. He recalculated in real time. Judge Whittaker continued, I am denying the emergency petition. I am not appointing a special administrator today. And I am ordering that any further filings of this nature include verified, independent evidence, under penalty of sanction. Selena's eyes flashed, then softened again as she tried to salvage the image. Your Honor, I only wanted to protect my grandfather's legacy. Judge Whittaker's gaze cut through her. Your grandfather's legacy is this court's concern, not your tactics. Then he looked at me. Ms. Heller, he said. Did you have the original will for submission? Yes, I replied, sliding the envelope forward. Proceed, he said. For the first time since the rifles were pointed at my windshield, I felt the day's directions shift back into my hands. The clerk began the formal process, opening the envelope, verifying signatures, noting the date. Selena sat stiff beside her attorney, watching like she was waiting for a second chance to strike. And then, right as the clerk turned to the next page, The bailiff stepped close to the bench and whispered something to Judge Whittaker. The judge's eyes narrowed. He looked down at his screen. I then back up at the room. Hold, he said, voice suddenly sharper. We have a new filing. Selena's head snapped up. Judge Whittaker stared at the docket for one long beat, then said, and it appears your sister just submitted a request for an emergency protective order against you, using the same allegations from this morning. The judge didn't repeat the bailiff's whisper. He didn't need to. Judge Whittaker lifted his eyes from the docket screen and looked straight at Selena like he was seeing the shape of her strategy for the first time. Ms. Heller, he said evenly, did you just file a request for an emergency protective order against your sister while sitting in my courtroom? Selena's mouth opened, then closed. Her attorney moved like he wanted to stand and shield her with words. Judge Whittaker held up one finger. Quiet. Absolute. I'm not asking nor counsel, he said. I'm asking you. Selena's face rearranged itself into concern. Your Honor. I'm scared, she said softly. After what happened this morning. What happened this morning? The judge interrupted. Has already been confirmed on the record as a false stolen vehicle report filed by you. Selena's eyes flashed then softened again. I didn't know it was false, she insisted. I thought she took it after threatening. Judge Whittaker's gaze sharpened. You thought, he repeated. So you marked her as armed. Selena didn't answer. She couldn't answer without admitting the intent. Rourke finally stood, voice smooth but urgent. Your Honor, the protective order petition is in a different division. It's not before this court. Judge Whittaker's mouth didn't change, but his tone did. It's before this court, he said, because it was filed as a tactic to influence this proceeding. Rourke swallowed and shifted. Your Honor, we can address it separately. We are addressing it now, Judge Whittaker said. He looked at the clerk. Print the filing cover sheet, the declaration, the timestamp receipt, and the e-filing metadata. Selena's shoulders went tight. That word, metadata, was the moment she realized this wasn't going to be a feelings conversation. The clerk moved quickly, printer spitting paper in short bursts. The courtroom waited in a silence that felt heavy with watching. I didn't look at Selena, I looked at the bench. I kept my hand still. The only thing I did was open my folder to a clean tab labeled Police Stop and slide the screenshot of Selena's voicemail transcription on top. And when the clerk handed the packet to the bailiff and the bailiff handed it to the judge, Judge Whittaker scanned the first page. Then he paused. Then he looked up slowly, and his eyes landed on Selena again. Filed at 8:37, he read aloud, voice flat. While you were present in this courtroom. Selena blinked fast. My attorney filed it, she said. Rourke's head snapped slightly like he hadn't agreed to that lie. Judge Whittaker didn't react to the blame shift. He turned the page. This declaration is signed by Selena Heller, he said. Under penalty of perjury. Selena's face drained just a shade. Judge Whittaker read a line silently, then another. Then stopped on the part that mattered. He looked at me. Ms. Naomi Heller, he said. This sworn declaration states you brandished a firearm and threatened to kill your sister. The room went very still. My throat tightened but my voice stayed level. That is false, I said. Judge Whittaker turned back to Selena. Ms. Heller, he said quietly. You just submitted a sworn statement accusing your sister of a felony threat. Selena's eyes widened in a performance of fear. Because I believe she's capable, no, the judge said. Because you want leverage? Rourke stepped forward fast. Your Honor, this is highly emotional. My client is fearful and acting out of caution. Judge Whittaker cut him off without raising his voice. Counsel, caution does not authorize perjury. He tapped the page again. And this filing references the armed suspect advisory as support, he said. An advisory your client caused to be entered. Selena's lips parted. She looked like she wanted to cry, but her eyes were dry. Judge Whittaker turned to the bailiff. Bring Ms. Heller's emergency petition from this morning, he said. The one you denied. The bailiff retrieved it. The judge compared the language, eyes moving between two documents, like he was matching fingerprints. Then he spoke one sentence that made the air go colder. These are the same allegations, repeated in a different courtroom, he said. That is a pattern. Rourke's voice sharpened. Your Honor, with respect? With respect? Judge Whittaker said. I have a duty to protect the integrity of this court. He looked down again, then pointed at the bottom of the protective order filing. And this is where you made your second mistake, he said. Selena's head tilted, slightly confused. Judge Whittaker looked at the clerk. Read the submission source. The clerk hesitated, then read from the e-filing metadata summary. Submission IP maps to courthouse public Wi-Fi, she said. Device type, mobile. Selena went still. Because that meant she didn't file this from home in panic. She filed it from inside the building, while claiming she was in fear of being near me. Judge Whittaker's eyes stayed locked on her. So, you were fearful, he said, but you remained close enough to file this from the courthouse network. Selena's voice came out thin. My hands were shaking, Your Honor. Judge Whittaker didn't blink. Your hands, he said, were steady enough to write a sworn statement accusing your sister of brandishing a firearm. He turned his gaze to me. Ms. Heller, he said, and you own a firearm? No, I replied. And if the court wants it, I can provide a sworn statement and verification. Judge Whittaker nodded once, then gestured slightly toward my folder. What do you have? I slid the voicemail transcription forward and the screenshots of Selena's morning texts. Your Honor, I said calmly, this is her asking where I am, right after she filed the false report. And this voicemail is her saying it was my last chance to do it the easy way. She expected me not to arrive. Judge Whittaker read without expression. Then he looked up at Selena again. Ms. Heller, he said, why were you asking where she was if you were afraid she was coming to harm you? Selena's lips pressed together. Rourke's jaw tightened. You don't have to answer, Rourke said quickly. And I'd advise you not to. Judge Whittaker's gaze cut to him. Counsel, I didn't ask you. He turned back to Selena. Answer. Selena's voice came out small. I wanted to know she was coming, she said. Judge Whittaker's tone stayed flat. Because you needed timing. Selena's eyes flashed, anger breaking through the fear costume for half a second. Then she recovered. You're twisting this, she said softly. Judge Whittaker leaned back slightly. No, he said. You're repeating it. He picked up his pen and made a note that felt like a door closing. Here's what will happen, he said, voice clear. First, the protective order filing is not before me for adjudication. But I am referring this declaration and its timing to the appropriate division and to the court's sanctions calendar. Second, I am issuing an order that neither party may harass or contact the other regarding this estate, except through formal filings. Third, he looked at Selena as if he wanted the next words to land exactly where they belonged. I am forwarding the false stolen vehicle report information to the district attorney's office for review. Selena's face went pale. Rourke stood up so fast his chair scraped. Your Honor. Judge Whittaker raised a hand. Sit down. Rourke sat. Judge Whittaker turned to me. Ms. Naomi Heller, he said, we are proceeding with probate. We would not let collateral filings interfere with the administration of this estate. He nodded toward the clerk. Continue. The clerk returned to the will, verified the signatures again, and began reading the appointments. When she reached the line naming the personal representative, Selena's posture shifted. tense, ready to interrupt. The clerk said it clearly. Naomi Heller is nominated as personal representative. Selena's attorney started to rise. Judge Whitaker looked up. Don't, he said. Rourke sat back down, face tight. Judge Whitaker looked at me. Ms. Heller, he said, I am prepared to issue letters of administration today, contingent on the bond waiver language and your oath. My lungs loosened a fraction. Selena's voice broke in anyway, sharp. He wouldn't have wanted her, she snapped. He told me. Judge Whitaker's eyes hardened. Your grandfather told the will, he said. And the will is not impressed by your mood. Selena's face flushed and she leaned toward Rourke, whispering urgently. The judge watched her, then looked down at the will again. Then his eyes stopped on a section lower on the page. And he paused. He read silently, and his expression changed in a way that made my stomach tighten again. Not fear, but recognition. He looked up and said calmly, Before I issue letters, I'm going to read one clause into the record. Because it appears the decedent anticipated exactly this kind of conduct. Selena went very still. Rourke's face tightened. And Judge Whitaker turned the page, fingers settling on a paragraph that looked like it had been used before. Judge Whitaker didn't read the clause like a dramatic reveal. He read it like a warning label on something dangerous. The decedent included what is commonly referred to as a no contest clause, he said, voice even. I'm going to read the relevant portion into the record because it directly relates to today's filings. Selena's hands clenched on the edge of the table. Her attorney's posture stiffened. Judge Whitaker continued. If any beneficiary, directly or indirectly, initiates or encourages any action intended to delay probate proceedings, harass the nominated personal representative, or interfere with the orderly administration of my estate through false allegations, misuse of law enforcement, or filings made in bad faith, such beneficiary shall be deemed to have contested this will. The courtroom stayed silent. The words were clean, deliberate, and horrifying for someone like Selena. Judge Whitaker flipped the page slightly, eyes scanning, then read the next line. In such event, that beneficiary's share shall be reduced to $1. Selena's face drained of color so quickly it looked unreal. Rourke stood up, voice suddenly urgent. Your Honor, I know contest clauses are subject to interpretation. Judge Whitaker didn't look at him. Sit. Rourke sat, jaw tight. Judge Whitaker looked at Selena. Ms. Heller, he said, you initiated a false stolen vehicle report at 6:51 a.m., which resulted in a high-risk stop. You filed an emergency petition at 7:42 a.m., attempting to remove the nominated personal representative based on that manufactured event. You then filed a protective order request at 8:37 a.m. from courthouse Wi-Fi containing felony allegations under penalty of perjury. Do you dispute those timestamps? Selena's mouth opened. No sound came out. Judge Whitaker waited a beat longer than mercy required. Then he turned his gaze to the clerk. Proceed with letters, he said. The clerk stood. Ms. Naomi Heller, please raise your right hand. I did. Don't you solemnly swear to faithfully perform the duties of personal representative of the estate of Walter Heller, according to law? I do, I said. The judge signed with a pen that scratched quietly across paper. No gavel slam, no theatrics. Just ink turning into authority. Letters issued, the clerk said. Selena made a sound like a sharp inhale. This isn't fair, she whispered. Judge Whitaker didn't react to fairness. He reacted to conduct. Ms. Heller, he said. Your counsel may advise you about the consequences of a no contest clause. I suggest you listen. Rourke leaned towards Selena, whispering fast. Selena stared forward like her mind was trying to claw its way back into a story where she still won. Judge Whitaker looked at the bailiff. Provide the sheriff's incident information to the clerk, he said. I want it attached to today's record. The bailiff nodded. Then the judge looked at me. Ms. Heller, he said. As personal representative, You have authority to secure estate assets. You will do so calmly and correctly. Do not engage in side duties. Let the record handle it. Yes, Your Honor, I replied. Selina finally found her voice. He didn't mean that clause, she snapped, anger breaking through panic. He wouldn't do that to me. Judge Whitaker's eyes narrowed slightly. He did it, he said. On paper, with his signature. Selina stood abruptly, chair scraping. You're stealing from me, she hissed at me. I didn't look at her like she was my sister. I looked at her like she was a line item. Your tactics are stealing from you, I said quietly. Rourke grabbed Selina's sleeve, trying to pull her down. Sit, he whispered sharply. She didn't. The bailiff stepped closer, hand near his belt. Not threatening, just present. Selina's throat worked. Her eyes darted around the courtroom, searching for someone to rescue her from consequences. No one did. Judge Whitaker's voice went colder. Ms. Heller, you will conduct yourself appropriately in my courtroom. Selina's voice cracked, but not with sadness. With rage. She's going to lock me out of everything, she said. That, the judge replied, is what personal representatives do when the estate is at risk. He turned slightly toward the clerk. Set a review hearing in 30 days, he said. And note that any further filings by Ms. Selina Heller related to removal or harassment would be scrutinized under sanctions. Then he added, calm and final. Court is adjourned. The session ended with shuffling papers and quiet murmurs. Selina stood rigid as people filed out. Rourke spoke to her in quick, low sentences. She wasn't listening. I walked out into the hallway with the letters of administration tucked into my folder like a sealed gate. Selina followed me out, fast. Naomi, she hissed, stepping too close. Give me my share, we can fix this. I didn't stop walking. You can't fix a timestamp, I said. She grabbed my sleeve. The contact was light, but the intent behind it wasn't. A courthouse deputy was already there. One of the ones assigned to probate security. He stepped between us immediately. Ma'am, he said to Selina, back up. Selina's face twisted. This is my sister. The deputy's gaze stayed flat. And she's asking you to step back. Selina didn't move. Why? So I did the thing I'd learned to do when someone tries to turn proximity into power. I turned it into procedure. Deputy, I said calmly. She filed a protective order petition against me this morning, accusing me of violence. I want it noted that she's approaching me physically in the hallway. Selina went still. The deputy's eyes sharpened. Ma'am, he said again, firmer. Step back. Selina stepped back this time. I didn't look at her. I didn't tell her what she deserved. I walked straight to the clerk's office and asked for certified copies of the letters and the no contest clause page. The stamp came down. Thunk. Certified. Then I walked outside into sunlight that felt almost offensive after that courtroom air. My phone buzzed. A text from Selina. I didn't mean it like that. Another buzz. Delete the police thing, we can talk. Another buzz. If you take my share, I'll ruin you. I screenshotted all three and saved them onto the same folder as the sheriff's incident number. Because Selina still didn't understand the rule of the world she'd tried to weaponize. Every message becomes a record when you make the state part of your lie. Over the next week I did exactly what the judge told me to do. Calmly and correctly. I secured Grandpa's accounts with the letters. I notified the bank and the brokerage. I changed mailing addresses to a locked P.O. box. I ordered a credit freeze because Selina had already proven she was comfortable with fraud. Then I did the part that felt the most surreal. I went to the sheriff's department records window and requested the CAD log and the body camera tag numbers from the stop. The clerk printed a receipt and slid it to me. Do you want to file a false report complaint? He asked. Yes, I said. And I want the armed advisory note preserved. He nodded once like he'd seen this pattern before. Okay, we'll wrote it. I didn't feel triumphant when I walked out. I felt tired. but it was a clean tired. The kind you feel when you stop being hunted and start being protected by paper. 2 weeks later, Selena's attorney emailed mine, because she was no longer allowed to just talk. The email was short and carefully worded. They wanted to resolve family conflict and avoid escalation. What they meant was, Selena had finally read the clause and realized she'd put her inheritance on the line. I didn't negotiate in emotion. I responded in structure. My attorney requested 3 things: a written retraction of the stolen vehicle report allegation, a written agreement to cease harassment and filings, and a stipulation acknowledging I was the personal representative and would administer the estate without interference. Selena signed. Because in the end, she didn't fear me. She feared the record she created. A month later, probate wasn't over, but it was stabilized. The estate administration moved forward with fewer surprises because every institution I contacted now had one instruction on file: communicate through the personal representative wholly and document every attempt to bypass it. Selena stopped playing with police reports and emergency filings because she learned some things she'd never respected before. When you lie to systems, systems don't forgive you. They archive you. And the moment I stopped responding like a sister and started responding like a record keeper, how the chaos lost its oxygen. If someone in your family tried to weaponize the police to block your inheritance, would you press charges? Or would you do what I did and let the court's clause and timestamps do the punishment? Tell me in the comments, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.